So welcome to this episode in the podcast series about wisdom, brought to you by Stuart Neville from Mindful Developments and Adam Wells from adamwells.com. Another question that's going to help us in our kind of reflections about wisdom. How do you feel about being uncomfortable? That feeling of being out of your comfort zone, of going towards the things that feel awkward and anxiety producing and scary, and the kind of tendency to stay away from the issues that feel difficult, or the situations or conversations or what have you, as opposed to kind of going towards them, even though it's going to be uncomfortable going there.
I embrace uncomfortableness, uncertainty, and it's like a muscle that you have to keep stepping outside your comfort zone. And in doing so, you're expanding your comfort zone. I embrace it, being in this uncomfortable space, because it is really the only place where you can grow. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that we have the greatest fear. We have these things that we fear, stuff we don't want to confront and we bury deep. So I think there's a thing around, I'm not necessarily confronting some of that deep inner stuff, the unfinished business. I think there's different aspects of being in this uncomfortable space in the external world and equally in our internal world. What's your view, Stuart?
I think we have lots of opportunities in life to lean into something we've been avoiding. And I think, as you say, there are certain times and places where that's quite easy to do. And the more you do it, the more you get used to it. And you just kind of think, oh, here I go, I feel a bit anxious again, but I've done it loads of times before, I'm just going to crack on, it's okay. And then there's some other areas where it's much, much harder, and we're not really aware of exactly why. We just know that certain things make us feel very unsettled. So I think for all of us, there's times when we do, and there's times when we don't, but we're not always really aware when we don't. And for me, I think it's with the kind of benefit of hindsight and reflection that you can kind of see, oh yeah, you know, I kind of took a particular position because I was avoiding something, and then it created a problem.
Yeah.
And then it came and bit me on the bum. I mean, I'm thinking particularly that there can be certain conversations that we might think, oh, I really should address this issue with somebody, you know, relationship difficulty or problem in a work relationship, for example. You don't absolutely have to, but you kind of think, oh, I probably should. But most people tend to go for the path of least resistance. I know there's times I've done that, and or you might be a bit paranoid and think, well, if I have a difficult conversation with someone, you fear what's going to happen. And actually the fear isn't just based about the person, it's because there's a fear inside. And, oh, there's something, you know, a part of ourselves or a way that we might be required to behave in a particular situation if we go there, so we don't go there, because being that type of person or behaving that way is to completely goes against who we've been up to that point in our life. And sometimes it's the conversation that could have taken place that didn't take place about something that was there in a relationship or in a group dynamic or in a situation, what have you. By not addressing it, it then kind of blows up. And I've had situations like that. And then my expectation of that somehow the situation could have been navigated without having that really difficult conversation gets blown out of the water. For me, I've reflected, well, I couldn't tolerate how uncomfortable it made me feel, or I made choices for comfort over being uncomfortable. And that was what was informing me on whether I did or didn't kind of lean into the situation. That if I had, things would have panned out differently. So I think some of these fears, they can be so deep-rooted and go right back to childhood. And some people's situations can remind you emotionally and unconsciously of situations in the past where we've avoided something that's felt overwhelmingly difficult. We'll continue doing it until such time as we can make sense of it, you know, make something conscious, understand that yes, there is this fear, but it's not helpful to always be imprisoned by it. And then, as you said, you might never get to the bottom of it. You might always be a particular way, but the more we're able to feel out of our comfort zone or go towards the difficult feeling, it doesn't completely crush us. There are real opportunities for significant change within ourselves, within our attitudes and what we're capable of doing and not doing.
It's shining a light on it and seeing what reality is, because maybe some of this stuff, it served its purpose in the past, but where we are in our life right now, we're still carrying a lot of this stuff around, which is making us uncomfortable. And I think I'll embrace that discomfort and just see what's actually going on here. Actually, this does not bear any resemblance to my current reality, and I can actually let this go. But it takes courage to do that, stepping out of your comfort zone to really go into this discomfort.
I think if you're really honest and aware, you'll kind of know that there's a short-term benefit from avoiding things that make you feel uncomfortable, but eventually you won't escape it. You'll suffer. And then if you lean into the difficulty and face up to it and have embrace the thing that makes you feel really anxious, you've got short-term suffering, but then you've got potential for a kind of long-term change that's beneficial, and other suffering down the road being quite as intense or what have you. And that is basically, that's the kind of process of growing up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Certain things most people back away from in their younger lives, they just don't in their older life because they've learned.
As we get older, I think there's that, it's an attitude thing. Maybe I'm too old to change. I don't need to change. Why should I change? Maybe the ego is still present. This isn't for me, it's for somebody else. Why should I change? How dare I have to change?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example, isn't it? Older age, you can become stubborn and or you can become wise, or a kind of combination of the two, wiser. Yeah, if you entrench and dig in for your whole life, and even right to the bitter end.
Yeah.
I'm this type of person, I see things this way, this is what's important to me, I will accept this and I won't accept that. But you meet older people like that kind of stuck to their guns their whole life because the alternative would be too uncomfortable for them, emotionally and psychologically. It's not an inspiring characteristic to meet in someone older. But on the other hand, if you meet somebody who has done the opposite of that, and they can, particularly if they can help you do what you can't, you let go of what you're not able to let go easily yourself. They've navigated the life chains that you haven't yet and you're struggling with, and they can help you, then it's a really inspiring quality. So it doesn't necessarily come with age, but I think the more experience we have, the more opportunity we have to reflect on how our staying in our comfort zones can be very problematic.
By virtue of the fact of growing older, you're going to experience discomfort as our body starts to wane. You're going to embrace this field of discomfort. You're starting to let go a lot of things that you're just used to. And so back to that recognition of, I have to embrace discomfort. I am going to be always moving outside my comfort zone, whether I like it or not.
There's a couple of kind of things that come to mind. One is in the field of psychotherapy. There's a famous psychotherapist called Wilfred Bion. He was a tank driver. I don't know which World War it was. I guess it's the Second World War. And the basic thing with a tank driver is that if you're getting kind of shelled from this direction, you can turn your tank to where the shelling's coming from and go in that direction and basically pull your firepower in the direction that the shelling's coming from. If you turn your tail towards the danger, you'll be blown up. So he used this as a metaphor for the psychotherapy work, that if there's a place where your anxiety is, or your pain, the kind of, I guess anxiety is the kind of main clue. Have that support to come out of your comfort zone, that issue that you maybe can't do on your own. And I think it's something very poignant about kind of being conscious of, a comfort zone barrier that just feels too terrifying to cross. So I think if you can kind of be aware of that and acknowledge that and be able to talk about it, you're already crossing the threshold You know, again, if it's not overwhelmingly difficult.
It's in the incremental step. It's one step at a time.
Yeah, life gives you the opportunities to do it. You don't really have to go looking for it. Any anxiety-producing situation or thought or what have you gives you the opportunity to ask the question. But I think it's a bit like that Brené Brown TED Talk is about vulnerability. If you put your head above the parapet or you go into the arena where the battle takes place, it's going to feel uncomfortable. But that's where your growth lies. That's where your learning, that's where your development lies. And that's where your potential lies as well. But it's looking on it positively, I think, and acknowledging that what it takes is courage.
Yes.
And that's a wonderful human quality to have. And sometimes support, you know, help from others to be able to do it when we can't do it alone.
When we do put our head above the parapet and step across the threshold, Joseph Campbell, he talks in The Hero's Journey, you meet the mentor, you have your allies, and you know, people come out of somewhere to help you. We do find that, I think, in life. How many times we're actually not sure and we're stuck or we feel we're lost, and then out of the blue somebody comes and helps us and you can't explain it. It's actually trusting in the unknown. Once we start crossing the threshold, getting into this uncertainty, building a muscle of trust, and the more we do it, the easier it gets. But we have to begin somewhere.
Yeah. So one of the ideas, and I know Joseph Campbell talks about in neurology, is if you're ready for the adventure, then the adventure will unfold. And on the adventure, you'll find your monsters to battle and your wise advisors, your old wizard or whatever, to help you along the way. Because it comes when you're ready. You know, you both have the battle and the difficulty, but then you also have, this is a mythological thing, but a symbolic kind of representation of that's what happens in life, but you're more open then perhaps to spotting and being able to utilize support and help from other people, for example, or
Definitely it's true.
they go hand in hand. Yeah.
One of my favorite expressions is when the pupil is ready, the teacher appears. And
there you go.
Exactly that. It's multiple times.
Yeah.
For me, it's a different way of living life. As I said before, you're out of your head. So many of us are looking for results. We want our foot on first base and the result of our foot on second base at the same time. And you can't have your foot on both bases on this. You have to fully let go and jump into the unknown and then just learn to trust. And once you've done that, then, you know, the magic happens. That's my experiences of uncertainty.